Welcome back to the DRS Zone. We are diving headfirst into the biggest technical storm of the F1 season.
Oh, absolutely.
The Las Vegas Grand Prix was spectacular, but the story that truly exploded came hours after the checkered flag.
A stunning double disqualification for McLaren.
I mean, can you believe it?
It was an incredible twist. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri were both classified, scored massive points, and then gone. Officially scrubbed from the results.
And the violation was for excessive floor plank wear.
Yeah, which sounds so, dry and technical.
It sounds like boring paperwork, but trust us, it is the razor-thin line separating genius engineering from outright illegality.
It really is.
So our mission today is clear. We're cutting through the noise, all the dramatic headlines, to get to the cold, hard, technical reality. What exactly is the plank?
And why did McLaren fail the check by margins thinner than, well, an eyelash?
Exactly. Was this systemic cheating or just a catastrophic setup calculation?
To even start, you have to understand the foundation of this rule. It is fundamentally a safety measure.
Right. It's not just about performance.
Not at all. The floor has to adhere to these really strict thickness tolerances. It's a system that was introduced decades ago to stop teams running the car so low that the ground effect aero becomes unstable.
And if that collapses, the car is.
Yeah.
It's just a passenger.
It becomes violently unstable. So we're talking about the reference plane, the designated bottom of the car, and the crucial element bolted to it, which is the plank.
Okay, so let's unpack the plank itself. We hear about it all the time, but what are we actually dealing with here?
It's basically the sacrificial element right underneath the car.
Sacrificial, I like that.
It's a high-density synthetic material, and a lot of people still call it wood out of tradition. This plank is designed purely to control the minimum allowed ride height.
But here's the critical point for everyone listening. The measurement isn't taken randomly across that material. It's hyper-specific.
That is absolutely right. The plank assembly has 4 designated points, 1 front, 1 lateral, and 2 in the rear, where the wear is actually measured.
And these points are special.
They are. These 4 crucial points are covered by highly durable metallic titanium skid plates. Sometimes they're called patents.
And these are the things making those incredible sparks we see at night.
That's them. So they serve a dual purpose, protect the material, but more importantly, they are the precise reference point for the FIA's check.
So the rule itself, what does it state?
Precisely. The rule is absolute. The plank assembly must start at 10 millimeters thickness.
Okay, 10 millimeters.
And the tolerance allowed for wear throughout the entire event is exactly 1 millimeter.
That's it. 1 millimeter for a whole Grand Prix weekend.
That's it. So at the end of the race, the measurement at those metallic points must be a minimum of 9 millimeters. No less.
So just to be clear, if a driver runs wide, hits a sausage curb, and gouges out, say, 5 millimeters of the synthetic material between the measurement points, technically the car is still legal.
If the measurement points themselves remain above 9.00 millimeters, yes. That's why all the engineering focus is on protecting those 4 tiny, measurable titanium inserts. You can ruin the rest of the floor, but if those 4 points are good, you pass.
The technical side is fascinating, but let's get back to the drama. How did McLaren's cars actually stack up against that absolute 9.000 millimeter minimum?
Well, McLaren's failure was incredibly marginal, which is what makes it so interesting. It just highlights how aggressively they were running.
And it was on the rear skid blocks specifically.
Yes, specifically the rear.
Yeah.
The difference between passing and, well, disqualification was truly microscopic.
So let's talk fractions of a millimeter. For Lando Norris, what were his failing numbers?
Norris's rear skid block measurements came in at 8.88 millimeters and 8.93 millimeters.
Okay, so he was overworn by 0.12 and a mere 0.07 millimeters.
Just 0.07. That gap is thinner than a typical sheet of office paper.
A sheet of paper? That is insane. And what about Oscar Piastri?
Piastri was slightly worse. His worst reading was 8.74 millimeters, meaning he was overworn by 0.26 millimeters. He did have other readings that were closer, like 8.90.
Which suggests the wear wasn't even across the car.
Exactly. Probably linked to specific corners on that Vegas circuit.
And when we compare this to past penalties, like Hamilton's earlier disqualification, where his readings were way down at 8.5 millimeters, McLaren's failure was tiny.
Much less severe in magnitude, but the result is the same. Absolute DQ. The rules don't care how much you fail by, only that you failed.
And nobody can argue with the measurement, right?
Oh, no. For the listener, we have to emphasize this. The FIA uses highly calibrated tools, like a mitutoyo micrometer, which is accurate down to 0.0001 millimeters. The numbers they produce are absolutely reliable.
The car was below 9.000 millimeters, full stop. The question then becomes, why?
Why take the risk?
Exactly. Surely the performance gain from 0.07 millimeters of extra wear is negligible compared to a double disqualification.
You'd think so, but that marginal gain is everything in Formula One. Running the car lower maximizes the efficiency of the diffuser.
It seals the floor.
It seals the floor, generating more downforce for free. That extra downforce could easily be 2 or 3/10 of a second over a lap.
And when you're fighting for a podium, that risk suddenly looks like a calculated gamble.
It's the very essence of F1 optimization.
If you're watching this on YouTube, welcome to DRS Zone, and don't forget to subscribe for more high-octane F1 content and deep dives like this one. Now, back to the pressure cooker that is the F1 pit wall.
So when the margin of failure is this small,
0.07 millimeters.
the F1 world immediately asks, was this intentional?
Was it cheating? Did they find a clever, sneaky way to get around the rules? Which brings us to that spicy rumor that popped up around the Brazilian Grand Prix.
Ah, yes, the conspiracy theory. It always happens when a team gets caught pushing the limits.
So the rumor was that teams were heating the titanium skid plates, the measurable inserts, to make them expand.
Thermally dilate, yes.
Yeah.
The idea was that if the metal expands and sticks out further, it rubs the ground first.
Protecting the softer plank material underneath it.
That was the theory. But if you connect this to the actual engineering physics and the rule book, the logic just completely falls apart.
It's counterproductive.
It's totally counterproductive to the team's goal.
Okay, explain that. Why is that rumor flawed?
Well, what does the FIA measure? They measure the thickness of the assembly at the metallic insert after the race, once the car is cool.
Right.
If you heat the metal insert so it expands and rubs the ground more, that means the wear is happening on the exact part you're trying to protect.
Because that metal is wearing down while it's hot and expanded.
Precisely. So when it all cools down and contracts, you are left with less than the minimum 9 millimeters. You've deliberately worn away the measurable section.
Wow. So trying to pull a sneaky trick like that actually makes you more likely to fail the check. It's self-defeating.
It completely destroys the theory. The actual engineering goal is the opposite. You want the synthetic material around the insert to wear down, while the measurable titanium part stays above 9.00 millimeters.
So the evidence just doesn't support systemic cheating.
Not at all. Look, McLaren has been checked 17 times this season.
And failed once.
And failed once. This was an isolated incident.
So if it wasn't a deliberate plot, it must boil down to complex setup choices on a very unique circuit. What was the chain reaction in Vegas that pushed them over that tiny margin?
It was an accumulation of factors, for sure. Trying to pinpoint one single error is impossible when the margin is that small.
What were the biggest issues they faced there?
First, the limited track time in the dry. That complicated setup calibration massively, they had incomplete data. Second, this is the most critical part, was the track itself.
It was bumpy.
Las Vegas was very bumpy, especially for a new street circuit. And this caused excessive transients.
Explain transients in an F1 context for us.
Transients are those severe, instantaneous vertical movements of the car when it hits a bump at high speed. On a smooth track, the platform is stable.
But in Vegas?
In Vegas, when the car hit those bumps, the suspension, the springs, dampers, the heave spring couldn't react fast enough to stop the floor from just slamming into the ground.
So it wasn't a gradual scraping on the straights, it was hard, sudden impacts, which is far more destructive.
Exactly. Spike loads of wear, not gradual abrasion. And the third factor is just risk management.
They pushed it too far.
They clearly calculated their setup right at the very edge of the safety margin. They just underestimated how severe those spike loads would be.
But they have sensors. Surely they realized what was happening mid-race.
Oh, they absolutely did. You could tell from the radio traffic.
The lift and coast calls?
That was the smoke signal. The engineers were asking Norris and Piastri to lift and coast in specific corners, probably high-load corners, where that rear skid block was rubbing too much.
But it was too late.
By the time they issued those commands, the damage was done. They were trying to slow the rate of wear when the minimum 9 millimeters had likely already been breached.
That's a horrible realization to have on the pit wall. The penalty is already sealed while the race is still running.
It's the definition of an operational failure under immense pressure.
So let's look ahead. This penalty cost them vital points. The next circuits, like Qatar, are high speed, high G, with abrasive curbs.
Very demanding tracks.
Does this mean McLaren has to dramatically raise their ride height everywhere now and sacrifice performance?
Not necessarily across the board. If they had to drastically lift the car everywhere, that would imply they were caught exploiting some loophole that's now been closed. And that's not what happened here.
Their failure was context-specific to the bumps in Vegas.
Correct. QATAR is fast, but it's generally smoother. They can run a stiffer suspension setup there, create a more stable platform that limits those destructive vertical movements.
So the lesson isn't our car is illegal.
No, the lesson is they have to refine their modeling for these transient conditions and, frankly, increase their safety margin when track data is limited.
Especially given their position in the constructors' fight.
Absolutely.
Right.
Points consistency has to override the appetite for that marginal technical risk now. Losing points this way is the only thing that could truly derail their progress.
So we started with a headline about a technical penalty, and we ended with a deep dive into engineering, fractions of a millimeter, and high-stakes gambles.
It just shows the margin for error in modern Formula One is, well, basically zero.
It's a sport where every decision has to be flawless.
Or you'll meet the absolute certainty of the FIA's incredibly accurate micrometer.
So the final thought for you, the listener. If an experienced F1 team can miscalculate track bumps by 0.07 millimeters and face disqualification, how much should engineers trust their data on race day, and how much is just, well, faith in their setup?
The line between genius and illegal really is thinner than a sheet of paper.
A perfect closing thought. Thank you for diving deep with us here on the DRS Zone. If you enjoyed this analysis, make sure you hit subscribe and follow us wherever you get your content so you don't miss our next deep dive into the relentless world of motorsport.